The Chosen One, Anakin Skywalker. Powerful Jedi Knight, commander, and most importantly, a constant pain for everyone involved in making and or playing this game. He's always felt off in one sense or another, ever since he was introduced. Whether he was too OP, undernerfed, overused, or just straight up abused by less talent forgiving players, he has never sat well with the majority of the community. As I put more and more hours on top of what seems like an endless amount of hours already into this game, I find myself trying out different aspects, including playing more heroes I don't play as much. Layer after rework feels great. Experimenting with Chewie has been like mastering a skill curve, very rewarding, and even learning to be the best support I can be with BB9E has been great fun. But returning to Annie,
storm's coming up, Annie. You better get home quick.
Has felt sluggish. His stamina runs low, his swings feel meaty but inconsistent in their effectiveness, his speed feels sloppy, his base playstyle seems mediocre, and when using his abilities he feels stuck to the ground. Let's start off with Anakin's signature move in this game, Heroic Might. This should be the easiest to explain. The ability literally sticks you to the ground as you charge up the damage that will be output. Because it runs 360 degrees, it encourages you to plop yourself in the middle of a fight and just stand there, head down, looking at the ground as you suddenly realize what threats are actually present. If it's just a couple of infantry, then no problem. It would have taken the same amount of time to cut them down with your lightsaber. However, this way you get to save on stamina while looking down at your shoes or whatever. If it's a reinforcement or hero, especially those that can block, well then, now most likely you're stuck to the ground. The only thing you can think of is how to escape, and Anakin isn't built to flee that situation in any sort of effective manner. Movement speed is slow while blocking, being in the middle of the fight is the worst place to try and escape, and you've used your main damage reduction ability, so I guess dash wait. It's the only frustrating but reliable way to disengage from a fight. Heroic Might is also one of the abilities that let your enemies plan on how to react to it. Since you charge it up, enemies have time to get into an advantageous position to take you down. And again, because the ability is 360, most players will probably put Anakin right in the middle of a fight, unlike what they would do with Obi-Wan and his all-out push, which is in the shape of a narrow rectangle that must be strategically placed while using the ability. Most other Force abilities reward the player for positioning, timing, and tactical analysis, but Heroic Might does not. Its charge up nature and the 360 degree angle make it very difficult to feel like it can be used effectively. You're either ability looping your enemies, finding yourself vulnerable after using it in the middle of a crowded area, or only using 20% of its range to take down 1 or 2 enemies. Most of the time it just feels like something to end off chain attacks with, rather than something to swing the tide in your favor.
Using the ability Pull Dominance, Anakin pulls his enemies in front of him, leaving the targets vulnerable for follow-up attacks.
When in full pursuit after an enemy, the key to winning is momentum, to be at your fastest possible speed while finding any way to reverse your adversaries. That's why Kylo's pull feels so good. The jump you need to do to avoid the animation makes for such fluid motion, and even when you engage on the ground, the animation is so short, and when himself is so mobile, the enemy stands no chance. That's why Anakin's pull dominance is not great. The animation is a bit clunky, it stops him right in his tracks and kills any momentum you had before. Now your strategy has to completely change from using the momentum you engaged in chasing down your enemy to figuring what to do with this enemy flying straight at you while you are close to or completely stationary. My biggest problem with the pull is that it encourages the ability loop. By destroying all previous momentum, you leave the player with very few options for dealing with the pulled enemy coming their way. And would you look at that, it seems a push down ability that the enemy can't do anything about is right there. Of course they're going to use it, and since they're not punished for it, it just encourages the abuse further. Everyone knows why Passionate Strike goes on the list. It has the most cumbersome animation, inconsistent lock-on range, and is really cheap in a one-on-one duel. Losing your duel to an opponent skilled at parrying, just bust out a strike that will take a bunch of health. The worst part is, that is when it's most helpful. No one uses it on regular infantry, it's just too clunky compared to regular strikes. What would have worked infinitely more is if the game replaced that with an ability that lets you activate a special one-hit strike that would go on cooldown as soon as it connected. Boom, press the button, Anakin is now holding his lightsaber differently, and if he hits an enemy or a hero that is not blocking, 200 damage, a one-shot to most infantry, and a deadly powerful strike against most others. If someone is blocking, 100 damage or whatever will feel powerful but fair. Obviously the animations on this should be silky smooth, and you should be able to toggle it on and off if it's not on cooldown. You could go deeper than that, like if you managed to parry that attack with a perfect timing, it would do no damage but would not go on cooldown for Anakin, only draining both of your stamina. Then we're heading sort of down to territory of a complete lightsaber combat overhaul, and I don't really want to get into that.
and can be unleashed by force choking all enemies in the area.
Retribution is pretty good. It doesn't happen that often, the damage is in a good spot, and it's powerful enough to justify being stuck to the ground. Giving Anakin a 4th ability could have been done in a number of ways, and I'm sort of glad they went for a gimmick move as to not upset the balancing too much, at least after they nerfed it, along with all the other abilities. It sets Anakin apart in a noticeable way, but not in a way that makes him too annoying.
Attack second to none, the Chosen One is a force of nature at close range.
What makes Anakin annoying are his swings, specifically their inconsistencies. Sometimes you chain attacks and feel straight out of the Clone Wars. Other times you're swinging at nothing, with your opponents only a few feet away. Sometimes you perform a brutal lunge strike on an unsuspecting opponent. And sometimes you hyperspace lunge way past your target to the next planet. One lunge strike is quick, but can take you beyond an enemy. And the other one is almost guaranteed to hit, but it is a slow pirouette. It doesn't really help that Anakin's stamina drains pretty quick, making those missed attacks that much more painful. Only Grievous really struggles with overshooting his target and potentially dodgy stamina. The big difference, however, is Grievous's ability to flee from a fight and tank damage while he escapes. Plus, his playstyle explicitly encourages only engaging as many enemies as you can take on. No smart Grievous player puts himself in the middle of a crowd, but with Anakin, it is always tempted. These hit or miss mechanics encourage an over-reliance on abilities. After all, if a swing won't do sufficient or any damage, the ability loop will. Anakin isn't fast enough to maneuver out of sticky situations, so hugging the block button or backing up and dashing backwards have become ingrained in the Anakin meta, essentially sticking Annie to the ground and sliding him around the ground with his dash until his ability comes off cooldown. With all of this, it feels as if the opportunity to create unique playstyles for Anakin molded off his base movements and abilities is somewhat lost. Seeing all the different ways players master different heroes in different and unique ways is fantastic, but you don't see that with Anakin. Instead, everyone complains about the scrubs that infest the game and slander the reputation of the Chosen One by mindlessly falling into the traps Anakin's design lures them into. It's a shame we'll never see him fixed. He had so much potential to be unique and or a beast on the battlefront, but with cheap moves, over-reliance on abilities, and mechanics that encourage no strategy, I guess, at least in this game, he'll be forever lost.
The Jedi are evil! Well, then you are lost!